Hello, and welcome to afaqs CMO Dialogues. Today, we have with us Gaurav Ramdev, the Chief Marketing Officer at Protean eGov Technologies. Gaurav, a marketer for 20 years now, has spent over a decade at FMCG companies like Coca-Cola, Britannia, and MTR before turning to marketing digital products like Razorpay's payroll and banking products, and now a digital infrastructure organization in Protean. Welcome, Gaurav.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, Sushmita, along in the August company of Agency Facts. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Gaurav, I want you to start by telling us a little bit about Protean, or NSDL as we used to know it earlier.
Protean by definition means multifaceted. Protean is an organization with 6 different business interests. The number one, as you said, and some of our oldest businesses that we've been doing for 28 years is our PAN issuance business, or we like to call it modernization of taxes. So that's business number one. Business number two is pension services. So building the core pension infrastructure for India, right from the day it was imagined to now, the citizens of India accessing pension today. We were the first, and we were the first CRA, that's the regulated term, for the PFRDA. And we continue to be the largest
Central Record Keeping Agency.
Yes, Central Record Keeping Agency. So we continue to be the largest CRA in operating in India today. The third business is all the rest of the 4 are adjacent businesses. Now coming to the adjacencies. Now, since an ID is born, like the tax ID, which is called the PAN card in India, or a pension ID, which is called the PAN card in India, you need authentication services as well, which means to tell me who I am. Gaurav is a Gaurav, or Shushmita is a Shushmita, right? So there comes our third business, which is ID and authentication, which is built on the nationally critical databases that we run, which authenticate your identity to the banks, to NBFCs, to several other official companies that want to authenticate a particular ID. So we call it, and in simpler terms, you will see this word like eKYC, online PAN verification. These are some of our products that we have built under this business. So that's the third business. The fourth business is, as you mentioned, ONDC. We built the core architecture of ONDC. We are fortunate to, again, build it from scratch, partner ONDC Limited to building it from scratch. And we are the registry and gateway providers for the ONDC. So that's the fourth business. And the fifth and the sixth, again, we saw opportunities on Digital India on a hyper localized cloud opportunity, where you, instead of depending on some of your hardware, you use the power of the cloud and the bundled services for the SMEs and MSMEs in India. And the sixth business is around our account aggregator, or data stack, as we like to call it. The data stack business is basically built on another license that we received from the RBI, which is going to be the next big digital infrastructure product. In simple terms, today you have your financial information is distributed. If you have taken a loan from, say, an X bank, if you have serviced your car loan from a Y bank, if you have done something, if you've taken a credit card from a Z institute or NBFC or a bank, this information is distributed and fragmented today. And the government's idea is to bring it all under one roof called account aggregator, where you have one identity called Shushmita Biswas. And under that, all of your financial transaction or history is recorded in one place. So that's the simplest understanding of what account aggregator is. So there is a big data business around it. So, and therefore we're calling it the data stack business.
Is all on the back end, right? So a consumer is not always interfacing with Protean. While, when they go to that NPS website, it might say Protean, but it's NPS at the end of the day, or it's Aadhaar at the end of the day, it's PAN at the end of the day. It's not Protean. So I want to know, for an organization like this, that's working in the shadows and making life easy for a population as large as India, how do you approach brand building for something like this?
Oh, uh, we'll have to write a white paper or a black paper to threadbare each and everything around marketing. But I think fundamental truth around marketing remains the same. Uh, Today, in a world of hyper innovation or coming up with new products, and we hear this, we go to LinkedIn and we see like every other alternate post launching something, right? Yeah, I think innovation is becoming a commodity with the kind of technology and with the kind of new products that we see being churned out by tech organizations. And therefore, brand remains a very big moat. A brand that you trust, a brand that is reliable to deliver services, a brand that you can be loyal to and go back. And especially when we speak about money, in most of our work that we do, money is involved. Either money is traveling from one place to another through authentication, or you are saving for your retirement, or you are actually having a tax ID which enables you to deal with money. The trust plays an extremely important role in what we build and what we deliver to the end citizen. And hence, in the marketing playbook, I think a lot of things are have to be balanced around what we say and what we do. So in a typical manner, I think doing is as important as saying. And therefore, while marketing puts on the shiny new, like tries to create a shiny new narrative or a story for what Protean is as a whole. Because I think before this interaction, you would also have imagined Protean as sum of small parts, right? You do this as well, you do this as well. So I think a marketer's agenda, like my agenda here, is to bring Protean one as a whole. Number one. Number two, I think the agenda is also to weave out a narrative which is strong from a consumer lens as well as a business lens. Because from an inside out perspective, from our perspective, we are a B2C and a B2B org. And last but not the least, I think the product has to deliver the services it promises, because it can't go wrong. We can't have half-baked products in the market, because, as I said, money is involved either at the deep end of it or at the first instance of it. And therefore, the job of a marketer is a complex one. It has to deal with several smaller parts of storytelling, which is brand, typical brand, and also product marketing, which is a lot of doing, right? Showing, showcasing, which is to building trust in the products that we are building.
What were the key things you possibly started out by addressing? So I remember seeing a lot of OOH advertising for Protean, definitely around Mumbai for sure.
Sure.
So if you can take us a little bit, into what went into the rebranding exercise in particular.
So we are a fairly young brand, a new brand name to emerge, right? And it will take its own course and path to become a household brand, or become a large scale population brand that we ought to be. How did it start? Well, the real momentum. So we did the 1.5 years back. We did a small foray just to call out that we are now a new entity, right? I think that was a limited job. It had a limited objective, and therefore, for regulatory reasons, we called it out on some of the print mediums. But as we progressed, we more and we in the leadership, we decided that we needed more of a brand play. And why? Because on one hand, if we deliver, as I said, on one hand, if we deliver such population scale product, there has to be trust, and trust comes from building a brand. And therefore, we decided to up our momentum about 8 months back, or 10 months back, actually. That's where I came into the organization. And then we started our journey by breaking down things into 2 or 3 parts. One first part was telling a Protean narrative or a story, right? What is Protean? Trying to answer or unravel or demystify what is Protean. I think that was like any big brand you take today, Accenture, Intel, any of these large brands that have been built over a legacy of like 20, 30, 50 years now. What it is very imperative to win in the market by telling what first, right? So that came in our first step towards the journey. So we decided and build we got Ogilvy on. We built a whole narrative and a story around what is Protean. So showcase some of our products that we build. It was a typical corporate brand campaign that we really launched, right? Which in which we tried to thread all six of our businesses, and of course lead with the benefits of what we do for the digital India. At that very time, we also came up with a moniker that we took on a cultural insight. Actually, the prime minister has been speaking about it. The most of the government has been speaking about it, which is called the digital public infrastructure, digital pub DPI or DPIs. DPIs is something that we thought that that's what the company was born out of, and therefore we took that as an example, and we started calling ourselves as a DPI organization. So that's the starting point, and we did a full 360. Like you saw hoardings, we did a full print campaign. We brought out we set our imagery. We created I mean, you can almost call it the first campaign from Protean ever. So we built a brand. We told our story, and the insight there was that since Protean is so new and most of it is unknown, let's just try and demystify what Protean is. So that's step one. Then very quickly the IPO time came. We went about doing our IPO campaign as well in quick succession. An IPO campaign was of course focused on the price, focused on what the investors could look forward to. But I realized that it is a great marketing opportunity, and I put my head down around it to execute an IPO campaign that the brand has seen. And there again, it became an extension of what is Protean, because for the investors, the retail investors, the DIIs, the FIIs, all had to understand what Protean is. That's been our starting point journey of telling our product story or telling our brand story. And therefore we extended that whole thing under the IPO campaign as well for a good 6 to 8 weeks until leading up to the IPO. And that bore great results. And I think this year you'll see even like the next chapter in the marketing unfold. And therefore, in summary, I see building brand Protean as a multi-year program, and it's not a switch on, switch off. Second, we don't need to be a top of mind because our products are top of mind. And therefore, as a brand, we need to be focusing on all aware users. We need to reach the last mile in India to communicate what Protean and build the brand trust, so on and so forth. So we're now tackling the phase 2 of our brand building.
Got it. I want to change topics a little, and you've been working on marketing for a range of brands across categories, and now digital products. I want you to tell me, in these 20 years, since you started to now, what is one fundamental shift that has possibly taken place, something that was a core truth 20 years ago, which is not true anymore, and you've had to completely rethink this piece of marketing?
Good question, googly question. What is the new thing that actually, in my experience, Sushmita, I think the two things I see fundamentally change in marketing today. First, I think it is now well understood that brand is your moat, right? So building a brand is essential for a small businesses like a startup in today's world, or large businesses who have done this for over 30 years, right? I think number one is that. And no longer marketers have to find a position in the organization to make themselves heard or make themselves an important part of leadership and down below. So I think that is one big change that has happened. Because if you traverse the era of the last 20-30 years, marketing was under business, marketing was under growth, marketing was under commercial operations, so on and so forth. Now marketing stands on its own. So that's point number one. And point number two, in execution. So this is in the thought and the leadership thought of organizations. On the execution, I think I feel for the brand managers today. The amount of complexity and the choices that that are available for as a marketer based on X budget, like the conversations are not budget forward, the conversations are now idea forward. And that's a great change for brand managers of today. if anybody through this conversation is listening and a young brand manager today, I think what counts is really the idea, because that's what, being in many jury boards, I've seen ideas getting executed left, right, and center. But I think the idea is what really counts, because scale is just a matter of function of money. And all good organizations, all good marketing organizations believe in the power of idea more than throwing money at a average or a below average idea. So I think that's the execution difficulty that I feel for brand managers today.
Got it. I want to ask you one thing. You said how the marketer now is being seen as independent. I mean, this function is getting the its due, sort of. But there is still that refrain in some parts of the fraternity, that this is marketers or the CMO is still seen as a cost center in some sense, right? So would you say that that's limited to certain categories or sectors?
I've had the good fortune of being in FMCG, fintech, and now DPI tech, or population scale tech. I think I have firsthand felt the three different things that you say, Shushmita. The first was the FMCG days, where you put your head down because a brand gets you business, right? It's fundamental. The second phase, I think it is now becoming clear that your motive is now more the brand. I think that we are still a few years away where this is firmly established, but I think the roots of it are there, very, very clearly there, and therefore building a brand is extremely important. A trustworthy brand is very, very important in the financial services space or fintech space. And the third portion, which is DPI tech, which is here, it's important to build a brand which has a legacy which can last for like 20-30 years, because the kind of business that we do, it is not a 1 day, 2 day, or a 1 year, 2 year, 5 year business. It's a lifelong business, and therefore investing in building a brand that people of India or citizens of India can trust in is going to be a lifelong job, and it's always going to be work in progress. So if I look at the landscape of at least these three sectors that I have worked in, I think the real question that you're asking is, how do you justify every campaign versus how do you justify every marketing, right? I don't think there is a question around marketing as a function, but I think there is going to be questions in all sorts of organizations, be it FMCG, be it non-FMCG organizations, where you justify the spends to deliver one of the 3-4 objectives that you set out for. So if marketing is set out in an organization to build trust, you measure trust, and you give back to the organization of the objective that you set out. If the organization is built towards building lead generation, or building business or growth, you build out a performance campaign, or any of the programmatic, or any of the, like, you execute the entire performance marketing stack, and you deliver the X amount of leads, either marketing qualified or sales qualified, and develop the quality of growth that you bring in. And if it is traditional FMCG, you continue to think long term and short term at the same time at a brand level. At a long term, imagery metrics matter, because time and again we have seen long term imagery impact long term business sustainability. And short term, there is a direct correlation, and I don't think there is any more proof work required in that field in FMCG, where short term work impacts direct business. It impacts business at a B2B level, which is distribution, or at an imagery level, which is at the consumer, which is at the offtake level, or which is building perception about your brand, right? So I think the job of a marketing is not being questioned. Every campaign that you do, its objectives being clarified, and whether the campaigns are delivering against the objectives or not, will continue to happen. But that's par for the course. I think that should continue to happen, because it's a great push pull within the organization.
You briefly mentioned, the various categories you've worked in, and I want you to, go back and recall if any memorable campaign you have worked on, which perhaps was counterintuitive, or something that you thought, this idea, we really don't know if this will work, but then worked brilliantly? And anything from these last couple of decades?
Um, it's like choosing the favorite family member. Okay. But since you mentioned very specifically something that was counterintuitive, I think let me go back about 3 4 years, not too much in the past because marketing is evolving. Um, at Fanta, we had a very grave problem. And when I was leading Fanta for India and Southwest Asia, the grave problem was that of the positioning of the brand itself, right? For years, it was positioned as a brand which was meant for the early teens, your 12-year-olds, your 13s, your 14s. Um, Transforming that brand, which had a legacy of like ever since launch in India, which is 10, 12 years, uh, having a positioning which is deeply embedded as a kiddo brand
Mm.
and upping the age on the brand as a in the relaunch and the repositioning of it was, I think, one of the toughest challenge.
I
Now
see.
what's so in relaunching Fanta in India, I think we um, we went all out. When I say when we went all out, we thought not only about the positioning of, or the thought around it, which is positioning of the brand and execution of your material like advertising, like social and so on and so forth, but we also thought about the long legs of what a brand stays afloat, like consumption of the brand, like innovation around the brand, around flavors of new launches, like the choice of celebrity that we work and what it does to the brand scientifically. Um, Extensions like activation, like Cricket World Cup and Fanta could never be spoken in the same sentence. But
Mm.
we, in upping the age of the brand and putting down the new positioning statement for Fanta, like Fanta is for fun people. That was as simple as it can get. And the fun, seeing the fun in cricket was outside the boundary ropes, right? Because the fans have the fun while the sport is being played inside the boundary rope, right? So the
Right.
serious people are inside the ropes, and outside the ropes is where fans are having fun. And therefore, while most of the brands spoke about everything that's happening within the game, which is within those within the boundary ropes, which is for the players and for like and a lot of competing brands within Coca-Cola, like Thumbs Up, like Sprite, all of them were thinking within the boundary ropes. Fanta played it counterintuitively by playing it around the people that make the game, which is fans like us, and therefore fun for fans is really became a counterintuitive approach, and it did very well for us because Fanta became extremely unique and differentiated as perhaps one of the brands in the beverage, only brand in the beverage industry talking to fans. Second, the activations were around India, Southwest Asia like Nepal, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and we also took it to Dubai because the World Cup was happening there. So it became a multi-country operation. It was so sharply targeted towards fans of the game rather than just the game, and that helped us reposition the brand forever. I think in the next 20 25 years history of this thing, something
Interesting.
that I'm really proud of.
And can you also tell me, a lot of the times things we learn are also from failures. When we make a mistake, that is seared in memory forever, right? Saying, this is where it went wrong. It's possibly not, for no fault of one's, but then some small piece went wrong, but then you remember saying, this was the bit that went wrong, and there's a learning that comes from it. Anything
Yeah,
that you can recall where there was a lot of learning associated to a failure?
yeah, I think when I look back and sincerely think about all the, I think there have been many uh, I don't call failures, but many learning instances, I think, on brand execution that I've faced. um, and I think the key problem statement, and again this is a message out to all marketers, I think falling in love with a solution has always caused a problem, and not falling in love with the problem that you're trying to solve for the brand. somewhere marketers like me, like young marketers, right, who are raring to go, want to make a difference to the brand, deliver on the objectives, ki share aayega, yeah, revenue will go up, or profitability, and so on and so forth. Generally, the you fall in love with the idea first. Like in a closed room, you're hearing an idea. Oh, this looks great. Let's do this. But if you don't fall in love with the problem that you're solving, I think that's when you start to like wade away, and that will lead to large failures at multiple levels, right? So you need to be honest, fall in love with the problem, understand what the brand is going through in terms of, is it a household penetration, is it market share, is it distribution, is it brand, is it perception, is it positioning, whatever. Honing on the problem is the key, I think, key thing in making a brand successful. So that's point number one. In my experience, I think going horribly wrong. I think, let me take an instance. In my younger days, at Britannia, right? At Britannia, there was a very interesting property that came our way, which was pitched to us, called Spice Tunes. It is basically, in a very simple world, we create an online world for kids, and I'm talking about the biscuit brands that I used to manage, like Jim Jam and Treat. In Jim Jam, the whole idea is build fun for the younger kids, like 8 to 10, 8 to 12 years old. And therefore we thought, oh, creating an online property, getting them hooked onto the property, putting out coins somewhere so that they can redeem the coins for more Jim Jams, right? That was the whole idea. Very simplistic. That was the whole idea. But I think over the course of time, as we built it, we put something on the pack, like a reference code or a QR code, to really join the Spice Tunes brigade, and so on and so forth. I think the whole idea became about Spice Tunes and not really about Jim Jam. And what does Jim Jam do for you? Is it the fun brand that you want? Is it the fun naughty brand that you want to build out on? And I think that has become like a good learning point. What I just mentioned, I think we fell in love with the idea, which is Spice Tunes, saying we'll create an online world. And it was just the very early days of gaming in India, and we were talking about gaming, and we were ahead of the curve. Like in FMCG, we were ahead of the curve in getting all of this to FMCG. While all of that was great, but I think the problem at hand was to solve for more mischievousness, more naughtiness for the brand. I think we should have invested more time and effort there, to really build out a legacy of a brand.
As we almost, wrap up this interview, I want to come to you with a question about the flavor of the season, which is AI. No matter where you go, I mean, there is either an event about AI, or,
Yeah.
people are having conferences and all sorts of things about AI.
True.
So I want to ask you, and it's not just that there are these conferences or, conversations around AI, but there seems to be a lot of actual on-ground implementation where generative AI is solving for some efficiency somewhere, improving, workflows in some organizations. Offline applications are there. So much is going on. I want to ask you, have you experimented with it? What has your experience been? What have you done with generative AI in particular?
Yeah. So um, I'll start with my enthusiasm level. I think it's a 10 on 10 on generative AI. I feel seldom in a decade you like get an access to a technology which will change how things are done, right? And I feel Gen AI is right up the alley. For marketer, why am I excited? I think in my team right now, the day ChatGPT rolled out, the day some of these new dot AIs, like you take up copywriting, you take in visual design, you take up any of these things that we do at marketing, all of them have an AI tool today. So experiments have started, early proof of concepts are already there. We I can tell you all the places that where marketing is starting to use AI. At a very fundamental level, we are now better at our copywriting, right? It can't think for us, but perhaps that stage from which takes you to 0 to 1 is far faster than what we were earlier. It can't write the brief that a brand manager has to write, but I think 0 to 1 on getting a framework, writing down the first draft and taking it to version 7.0 at your own desk, I think that has become far faster and easier. getting it to the final version, right? When you save it on your laptop, I think that requires intellect, marketing intellect, right? I think that won't be impacted anywhere soon. So I think it has made processes much faster. Second, I think it has given all teams, all marketing teams, no matter brand teams, product marketing, PR, communication, content teams, performance marketing teams. I think the more Gen AI tools that they use, the more independent they become, right? Uh, Look at the landscape of a typical marketing organization. Creative, there is one designer, two designers, five designers sitting at your sitting in your team, who's basically the idea is to churn out designs and for different executions. Similarly, your brand manager is busy thinking about the brand, the next campaign, the next shiny new narrative around the problem that we need to solve. The product marketing is busy thinking testimonials, building trust around the product, how-to videos, and so on and so forth. So on and so forth. Like I can give you the whole list of each and every department. But today with Gen AI, all of them first are now truly can exercise independence without depending on each other too much. The only thing that we need to like bridge together, and especially I've realized this in my tech journey that I've been on for the last 3-4 years, is the only thing that you need to thread is how a brand is executed, the consistency of brand execution, right? I think if you get that right within a department, most of the departments can become independent. Like today, my content marketers in the team are writing their own like think tank subjects or thought leadership work, but they are immediately converting that into a video using a Gen AI tool, right? Trying to tell a social story first rather than a long format blog that might be available on Google search, right? And that's the beauty, and that's the unlocking of certain skills that you had as a content marketer, but you had to depend on saying, acha, ye design, oh agency, oh this, oh that. And therefore the time for execution has gotten shorter. The ideas have become more powerful. Like a content person is today thinking, how can I execute my content in 5 different ways, not in not in one simple straight line execution. The brand managers are now thinking, how can I deliver a brief more sharply, visually, rather than a 2 pages long with a standard framework of saying this is the insight and this is the TG and XYZ. Can I bring the visual alive of the TG description that goes down for 5 lines? Can I bring the insight alive through my runway, so through my mid journey skills or ML skills that I have through a visual that I can deliver? So that's how I think the teams are now becoming more empowered, more least dependent, and therefore more productive. Is the first proof of concepts that I'm seeing within the team. The future also is exciting from a martech lens, right? And if I put on the hat of a performance marketing and martech, I feel the tools are going to be much faster and more integrated. Today, one of the key problems in martech is you have 20 companies, 15 products. There are at least 17 products running on our websites today, which integrate user behavior, UI, UX, and so on and so forth, right? All of that is going to come together as one large shell, saying apply the shell, you will get your ad fraud detection system, you will get your conversion rate optimization, you will get behavioral analysis of the consumer that lands on your landing pages, you'll get a cookie and look at the cookie tag, and you'll also get a communication setup which automatically sends out a WhatsApp if you have not bought from me for the last 5 days, and so on and so forth, right? So I think Gen AI's future in marketing looks like bringing together seamless environment for execution, uh, churning out big data and insights for marketers. Today's proof of concept world around Gen AI looks more like immediate unlocking of the skills within the team in a distributed manner. So that's where I'm excited about Gen AI.
Got it. And thank you, Gaurav, for your time today, sharing your time and knowledge with us. I'm sure it'll be helpful for all the young viewers and refresh thoughts or provoke thoughts with those who have been around for decades.
Thank you, Shishmita. It's been my pleasure. And we're doing this early in the morning. You've got me as fresh as I could be. So thank you once again.
Thank you so much.